Hi everyone, I am now going to read chapter 18 of Dead End in Norvelt. Without my get out of jail free card, I was stuck waiting for Miss Folker to call me down for some obituary work, but all the old ladies were doing just fine. They were breathing and eating and talking and singing and not at all making plans to die. I couldn't blame them because I didn't want to die either, even though boredom was killing me. Then, after a few more sun-scorching days of hard digging in the backyard, I suddenly remembered Mr. Green had said I could work for him at the Norvelt News. But when I asked Mom to let me go work for him, she said, "No, you have chores to do right here." "But he'll pay me," I said. "And we are now giving you an allowance for your work around here. Besides, you are still grounded." She was tough. "I am now going to go cry," I said, with my voice rising as I headed out the back door to continue digging the bomb shelter. "If you come outside, you won't see any tears because the sun is so blazingly hot my sad tears evaporate before they even have time to leave my swollen red eyes." "That was nicely spoken," she said, and cracked a smile. "Too bad you didn't put that much thought into not mowing down my corn." "Please," I begged, "let me help Mr. Green." She softened. "Maybe later," she said. But later never arrived. I was stuck in a world where time had come to a standstill, except for my digging. My nose bled on and off, so I worked with the corner of a white handkerchief shoved up on my one bad side. I had used a yellow pencil to pack it in there good and tight. From a distance, it looked like I had been playing badminton and had a shuttlecock jammed up my nostril. Every morning I hoped it would rain, but the sky remained clear blue and the temperatures hovered around 90 degrees. At breakfast one morning, something seemed wrong when I read the day in history. Then I realized Mr. Green had repeated a column from the previous month. He could definitely use my help at the newspaper. June 16th, 1829, Geronimo was born. He became a great Apache warrior who fought for Indian freedom. June 16th, 1858, Abraham Lincoln delivered his "A House Divided Cannot Stand" speech in Springfield, Illinois, which meant the country could not be partly for and partly against slavery. June 16th, 1903, the Ford Motor Company was started. Henry Ford declared that the perfect assembly line factory worker would be a blind man because he could earn one exact task and repeat it endlessly for the rest of his life. That was me. I could close my eyes and dig a hole for the rest of my life. After breakfast, I washed out my handkerchief, packed it back into my nose, and went out to the bomb shelter. I loosened up the hard dirt with a pick, and then with my shovel, I flung the dirt into the wheelbarrow, and when it was full, I wheeled it over to where Mom had marked out where she wanted new raised flower beds. I dug and dug until the whole perimeter of the shelter was about as deep as my knee. By about 2 o'clock each afternoon, I wished the Russians would bomb me out of my misery. As I shoveled, I worked on my obituary. "Jack Gantos," I said, a little breathlessly, "was born at the Frick Hospital in Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania, and raised in Norvelt, Pennsylvania, which is a town that is slowly vanishing, and like some Houdini trick, it will soon be found in West Virginia. Jack was a good student, but learned more from reading books than from staring out the window at school. His parents were total strangers who took him away at birth." As I spoke out loud, I didn't hear Bunny sneaking up on me. "Are you adopted?" she suddenly asked, which startled me, and I jumped into the air like a crazed cat. "No," I said after I landed on all fours, then sprang back up. "No, I am not adopted." "Then why'd you say your parents were strangers?" "Because they were," I said right back. "I never met them before the moment I was born." "You are the strange one," she said, and pointed at my face. "And that bloody thing hanging out of your nose is beyond strange." "Sorry," I said, and turned away as I tugged the blood-crusted handkerchief from my nose and then jammed it back into the back pocket of my jeans. "I came here," she said, "to see if your mom will let you come to my house. My dad needs help cleaning the embalming room after he worked on some of those bus group people who died in that head-on collision at Unity Bridge. He'll pay you." I swallowed hard. "Will the mess look worse than what was at the Hell's Angel bucket?" I asked. She counted up the dead people on her stubby fingers. 5 times worse," she said, not including the pet dog who we didn't embalm. I suddenly felt faint. The air was hissing in my ears, and it was snowing just behind my eyes. I took a deep breath as I reached for her shoulder to steady myself. She stepped away. "Don't touch me with your bloody hand," she cried. I dropped down to my knees and pulled the handkerchief from my pocket. "See this blood?" I said faintly, and waved the handkerchief back and forth. "It's my own blood, and it makes me dizzy. As much as I want to get away from my house and make money, I can't work for your dad. I'll bleed to death, and your father will toss me onto that Aztec altar and embalm me." She shrugged. "Look, I'm here to give you another chance at doing some fun stuff together," she said. "You are already punished and have to dig this bomb shelter, so how much worse can they make it for you?" "They could make me dig 2 bomb shelters," I said. "Don't be so depressing," she said. "I've got a plan. Now that you can drive, let's borrow Miss Volker's car and cruise into Pittsburgh and go to a Pirates game. I have money for tickets." "Money is not the point," I said. "If I drive to Pittsburgh, I'll be arrested and put in jail. The cops aren't stupid. They'll know I'm a kid, and my parents will kill me. As my dad says, you have to die sometime, so why not while you're having fun?" Suddenly, I remembered something we could do at my house without getting in trouble, and it would be fun, too. "Come in my room," I said with enthusiasm, "and I'll show you something cool." "Cooler than your bloody nose rag?" she asked, and wrinkled up her face. "Much cooler," I said, and I slowly got onto my 2 feet. "Come on." She reluctantly followed me into the house and down the hall and into my bedroom. "Look," I said proudly, and pointed to the back corner of my room where I had been busy. "I built a little igloo out of my books." "That looks more like a doghouse," she remarked. "It's an igloo," I said, "made out of blocks of books." "When you were born, it's a wonder your parents didn't reject you," she said. "I would have." "Do you want to read for a while?" I asked. I was eager to keep her in the house after I had spent days digging by myself. Dad had helped haul another empty Norvelt house to West Virginia, so he wasn't around, and I always felt guilty in front of Mom, so I avoided conversations with her. "You know I hate reading," Bunny said. "You want to know a secret?" I asked. "Sure," she said half-heartedly. "I love to sniff the insides of books," I said in a whisper, "because each book has its own special perfume." "Now you are getting even more weird," she whispered right back, and stepped away from me. "Let me show you," I said. I grabbed 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, flipped it open, shoved my face into the gutter of the book, and inhaled deeply through my stuffed-up nose. When I lifted my face from the book, I swooned and said dreamily, "Ah, that was a good one. Now you do it." She reluctantly grabbed Custer's last strand, flipped it open, and stuck her little curled-up cashew-sized nose inside the gutter. She gave it a good sniff, then dropped the book and staggered against my dresser. "History," she said, gagging a bit, "has to be the worst smell in the world. Maybe that's why when you die and people say you are history, they mean you smell bad as a rotten old dead person." "History isn't dead," I said. "It's everywhere you look. It's alive." "Well, I'm looking at history," she said, pointing at me. "You used to be a friend, but now you stink as a friend. I came here to give you a second chance, and you make me smell the crotch of an old book." "I'm sorry," I said, "but I'm just trapped here. As soon as I can prove I didn't know there was a bullet in that gun, I'll be ungrounded, and then we can do anything normal you want." "Okay," she said, "but how can you prove you didn't put a bullet in the gun?" "I have no idea," I said. "None." "Great," she said in a huff. "Well, Mr. Genius, when you figure it out, call me, but I can't sit in your little doghouse and sniff books all summer long, because then I'd know I had gone insane." She started to walk out of my room. "Don't go," I begged. "Please." She lowered her shoulder and stiff-armed me out of the way and stomped down the hall and out the door. From the other end of the hall, my mom shouted, "Jackie, who was that?" "A stranger," I muttered. I jammed my handkerchief back up my nose and went outside. Before I started digging, I fed the turkeys, made sure Warchief had water, then picked up my shovel. That evening, when Dad returned from West Virginia, he came into my room. "Hey, Jackie," he called out. "Are you in here?" "I'm in the igloo," I said. He walked back to the corner of my room. From where I was curled up in the igloo, I could see just his work boots. "That looks more like an outhouse," he remarked. "Or a tomb. An igloo is round, but your books are square, not curved. Do you need glasses?" I knew what I was thinking was wrong, even evil, but for the first time in my life, I wished that another old lady in Norvelt would drop dead at that moment and get me out of my room. "I found out something interesting," he said. "Guess who is actually buying up all of the Norvelt houses and moving them to West Virginia?" That stumped me. I couldn't think of anyone who would do that but my own father. Who? I asked. Mr. Huffer, he said, and hooted out loud. He's selling all the houses but keeping the land. Why do you think he'd do that? I stood up and my igloo fell apart and settled at my feet. Maybe he's planning to turn Norvelt into one big cemetery, I guessed. That's a possibility, he said and winked at me. But he won't have to work too hard at it. The place is already half dead. I'll ask Bunny, I suggested. In a minute, I called her on the phone. The moment she heard my voice, she hung up. And that's the end of chapter 18.